The Sony Bravia XR A80J from the 2021 lineup of Sony TVs has already received an extremely positive response so far. But is it the smart choice for OLEDs in 2021? Let's find out. Hi guys, it's Jonathan from Smart Home Sounds here. I hope you are all doing well. Today we're looking at the much anticipated Sony Bravia XR A80J 4K OLED TV in depth so you can determine if this TV is worth going on your shortlist. Now we'll cover everything from picture quality, sound quality, gaming capabilities, comparing it with last year's A8, the top of the range A90J and other main competitors like the LG C1 and lots more. Now there is a lot to talk about, so if you're looking for a shorter overview, do check out our 5-minute lowdown over on our YouTube channel. Remember, we are an authorised partner with Sony, so we sell this TV amongst others over on our website, smarthomesounds.co.uk, complete with free delivery and Sony's 5-year warranty, so it might be worth checking out if you're interested. And of course, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us either in the comments below or directly by calling, emailing us or talking to us on live chat. For now, let's get straight into the review. Now we recently filmed an in-depth review on the higher spec A90J, which is Sony's Master Series OLED TV, so I'll put a link to that below for you to check out. But the difference with the A80J is that this is the first step into Sony OLED territory. So this is the most affordable OLED in the lineup and it replaces last year's A8 model. And it sits just above Sony's top of the range full array LED, the X95J. Now the A80J comes in 3 different screen sizes, a 55-inch size available for £1,899, a 65-inch size available for £2,699, which is the one we have behind me here, and a larger 77-inch model available for £4,000. But please note, those prices are subject to change and you might find them on promotion depending on when you're watching this video. So the full model name for this TV used in the UK is XR65A80JU. Now TV names tend to be overcomplicated, but if you break it down straight away we can dismiss the U at the end as this isn't relevant. The XR at the start refers to the new Bravia XR processor found in all 2021 models. The 65 refers to the screen size in inches. The A refers to the model class, so A is OLED and X is LED. 80 is this specific TV model and J signifies that this is a 2021 model. If you're unfamiliar, OLED TVs are a step up from LEDs with pixels that can individually switch themselves on and off to create extremely vivid colours and lifelike blacks. Now the trade-off for this is that OLEDs do get bad stick for not being quite as bright as LED models, which is something that we will discuss in more detail later. If you would like to see the difference between OLED and full array LED for yourself, I'd highly recommend checking out our video comparing these types of screens in general and comparing the Sony full array LED TV, the X90J, and this Sony OLED A80J. So let's take a closer look at the design of the A80J then. So first of all, being in the OLED lineup, it uses a one slate design. So you'll notice that the bezel is almost non-existent and the TV itself is very slim, which adds to the aesthetic when wall mounting as it won't protrude from the wall very much. When you step up to a Sony OLED from full array, you benefit from a metal bezel rather than a hardened plastic, again adding to the premium look and feel of the TV, which I do think is essential when you're paying these kinds of prices for a TV. Now the aluminium layer stand is multi-position, so you can opt to have the legs at either end of the TV closer together, or you can actually jack up the TV slightly to accommodate a soundbar so it doesn't encroach into the bottom of the TV screen. Now we've had the Sonos Arc here for testing, so the TV stand isn't actually in its soundbar position, but actually looking at it, it doesn't encroach into the bottom of the TV anyway, so we've kept it as is. Now one thing I do miss from the A90J is the premium backlit remote, because the one with the A80J is only their standard remote, which still looks nice due to the brushed aluminium effect, but the backlight feature is really useful when the room is dark. Overall, I am very happy with the design of this TV. I don't think TVs in general can get any more visually appealing than this in my opinion, and I think design optimizations in the future will only be quite subtle. So let's move on to what it was like setting up and also what the interface is like. I would say it was really straightforward as they have a proper unboxing process to follow, which is safe and secure if there is 2 people. The next stage is to choose your stand mode, and again, the legs use a simple mechanism to attach to the bottom of the TV. So new for all 2021 Sony TV models is the Google TV interface, which I was actually glad to hear about, as while last year's Android interface was functional, I felt the likes of LG offered a better experience with their OS. Now that interface has had an update with some improvements, but overall the new Google TV interface on the 2021 models is a big step up. The menus are more intuitively laid out, you can search for content quicker, and there is a choice of 5,000 apps, including Disney+, Netflix, Apple TV, Prime Video, Now TV, and just about everything that you could name. Now I also appreciate this For You section, which is like your own dedicated section for your content, and it gets more personalized over time the more you watch it, and Sony understands what you like to watch over time. Of course, if you use an Apple TV, you wouldn't really be using this much, but if you don't, then it is a nice addition. You can also use your voice to navigate with voice search, which I found I used more than I would expect. Now you can also use it for genuinely useful things like changing the channel, changing the volume, changing settings. It's just so quick and easy. Now you'll also notice this new Bravia Core option, which is new for the Sony 2021 lineup, which is essentially Sony's own streaming service for recent box office movies on demand, and you can stream them in up to 4K HDR. Sony has stated that Bravia Core is the first in the industry to feature pure stream technology, and this new technology offers an equivalent quality to UHD Blu-ray with near lossless streaming up to 80 megabytes per second. A lot of this content is also IMAX enhanced, and that means it uses an expanded aspect ratio with better sound, so again another step closer to how the director intended the viewer to watch the content. They have also thrown in some exclusive content such as interviews, deleted scenes and backstage footage. So if you're a big fan of a particular film, you might find something here of interest. And as a little added bonus for purchasing this TV, Sony will also give you 5 credits to spend in Bravia Core within 12 months, and you'll get over 100 classic Sony titles for 2 years. Now do just be aware that Sony recommend a Wi-Fi speed of 43 megabytes per second to use Bravia Core reliably, and the higher quality content will require a super fast speed. So let's get more into the nitty-gritty of the specs of the TV then. So let's start off with one of the most notable updates to Sony's 2021 models, which is the newly designed Sony Bravia XR processor. Now the processor is essentially the brains behind the TV, and it's responsible for a large number of important elements, from refresh rate to blur-free visuals, and just providing lifelike visuals with color that is true to life. One of the biggest updates to the processor is the use of cognitive intelligence, which is designed to recognize how we see, hear, and perceive things in the real world, and then translate that into the picture and sound for a more realistic experience. And yes, I know that does sound a little bit like marketing jargon, and we were also skeptical, but if you compare the A80J with last year's A8 model, you will see subtle improvements with things like motion. One thing I am extremely impressed with are the amount of color hues that you get, allowing more natural shades and details to come through. Now this is thanks to the upgraded Triluminous display, but it's now called Triluminous Display Pro, due to the enhanced capabilities of the processor. If you combine this with XR smoothing, the picture is smoothed out to look true to life without banding that sometimes appear in other sets. The pixel contrast booster that we saw on the A8 is now XR OLED contrast, which makes the picture almost jump out at you and gives it that 3D effect. It also gets that brightness level up, which is something that a lot of OLEDs struggle with. Now the contrast is even better on the A90J thanks to XR OLED Contrast Pro, though the overall difference in this area is fairly insignificant. Now if we look at brightness in more detail, this has been one of the main areas that Sony has worked on with this lineup of OLED models. And as I mentioned earlier, brightness is something that OLEDs are sometimes criticised for and can struggle with. Now when you compare this with last year's A8, you can clearly see it is brighter on the A80J, but still not quite as bright as the X90J. Now you can increase the brightness in the settings, but I didn't feel the need to in our testing environment. Again, check out our full comparison between the A80J and the X90J for more info on this. Overall, from our in-depth tests, we believe that Sony have made significant progress with brightness on their OLEDs this year. I'll just show you now some clips which highlight the improvements in contrast, resulting in more brightness. Now do have a look at how pure the black is, which makes you sort of focus on the other elements of the screen. OLEDs do tend to perform better in darker rooms than LEDs, and this TV looks pretty great watching movies with the lights dim or even off. We also need to talk about motion clarity, which is essential to a good TV and is so important when watching high action elements of your content. Generally, motion is free of blur, even during the most intense scenes that we could find. Now that processor is analysing the picture on the fly and then smooths it out, and I think that works really well. If I am being pedantic, I do think the A90J goes even further in this department, but the difference is only minimal and pretty hard to pick out in casual viewing. You may also want to experiment with the multitude of different settings that you can adjust to your preferences. Now I do think it's worth putting the brightness up on all of the OLED models if you have a brighter room, just to bring that difference down closer to full array LED and make daytime viewing just that little bit more clear. Alternatively, you can enable something called ambient mode, which automatically adjusts the brightness and colour to match the room's environment. Now, I wouldn't get too bogged down with the settings, as I am confident that the settings out of the box will impress most of you, but for those that have more specific preferences, you can do all sorts here. Now, I know some of you might like to know what my personal preferences are, so I'll pop those up on the screen now. I've opted for the custom mode, contrast at 90, gamma at 0, black level at 45, and then peak luminance at high. I've disabled black adjust and advanced contrast enhancer, as I personally preferred the visuals with them off. I've left the brightness as is because this is a pretty dark room with no windows, but adjust that to suit your environment, of course. I'd advise to just have a little play around. You don't need too much tweaking to achieve a look that you'll be happy with. Now for those gamers out there, it's good news for the A80J, as you get two HDMI 2.1 ports at 4K 120 FPS, along with auto low latency mode. You've also got a dedicated game mode to bring input lag down to less than 8.5 milliseconds, so if you play a lot of live games like Call of Duty or FIFA, it does actually help to give you the edge over your competition. Coming from the predecessor to this model myself, the A8, I was impressed at how much smoother and lifelike visuals look on games now. A couple of downsides: one of the HDMI 2.1 ports is also the eARC port, so if you need this particular port for more than one of your devices, like a games console and a soundbar that both use eARC, such as the Sonos ARC, you would need to swap them over or use a receiver with HDMI 2.1 on board. Another downside is that there is no support for variable refresh rate currently, but we have been promised this in an upcoming firmware update by the end of this year. But like many of you, we do think it is a shame that Sony haven't been able to implement this just yet when other manufacturers have been. However, at least we know it's coming, and you will get this as a firmware update alongside all of the extra Sony features that are currently supported. Now, once this has been added, I do think it will be an extremely competitive TV for gaming, especially for the PlayStation 5. Now, we do also need to cover sound quality, as I know a lot of you watching are going to be weighing up your options to add home cinema components and soundbars and things like that. Now, my advice would maybe to see how you go with just the TV speakers to start off with, because if you've come from just using TV speakers before, I think you will be really impressed with how Sony have been able to maximize sound quality while keeping the TV so slimline. One big benefit you get with the A80J and above is something called Acoustic Surface Audio Plus, where the sound comes from actuators behind the screen and they vibrate to create sound that replicates the placement of the sound on the screen for an immersive listening experience. Now, a good example of that is if a plane flies from one side to the other, the sound would move with it, and it is quite smart technology. Now, I'm not saying that this will outperform a soundbar or home cinema system, because that's absolutely not the case, but do let us know if you think that you benefit from a video comparing all of your soundbar options. Now, thankfully, all Sony TV models this year support Dolby Atmos through the HDMI eARC connection, so if you do happen to use a soundbar with Atmos on board, you can unlock the best potential out of your audio system. But in addition to this, Sony have given you 3D surround upscaling, which is designed to complement Atmos and create surround sound vertically and from the sides. Now, Sony claim that this can replace in-ceiling speakers or up-firing speakers in a soundbar, and the best thing about it is that it works with all content, so you should get actually quite a nice wide soundstage from anything you watch. Again, it's not going to compete with a separate audio system, and in my opinion, it will never replace in-ceiling or up-firing speakers, but if you don't have the option to use those, it's good to know at least you'll get decent sound to match the quality of the visuals. You might also find the sound modes are useful to match the mode to the type of content that you're watching, like cinema, music, sports, and there are a few others as well. So then, moving on to comparing it with other models, which I know is something that a lot of you have been asking me for. Now, first and foremost, how does it compare with last year's A8 model? Now, this is something that I've paid close attention to myself, as I currently have the A8 and I love it. Now, as it is a direct replacement, they are very similar. However, there are a few changes to note. So the key upgrade is the addition of 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, which is brilliant for gaming. You've also got that Google TV interface, which if you don't use external devices such as an Apple TV, it does tend to offer a better experience. Now, I do think the Bravia XR processor offers an enhanced experience in terms of the details in the picture. The A80J is also available in a larger screen size too, with that 77-inch option. Having said all of that, for me, I don't think I'll be changing my A8 to this model. There's just not enough of a difference to make it worth it, in my opinion. Now, I am tempted by the A90J, as I said in my review of that TV, but if I was coming in fresh this year needing a new TV and I had the option to get the A8 or pay a bit more for the A80J, then I think it's worth it. As it is, it's just not worth the hassle for me to change now, but don't hold me to that. Now, the chances are, if you're considering this TV, you might also be looking at the next OLED model above, the A90J. Or if the A80J might be too much of a stretch, the models below are the X95J or the X90J. Now, there are plenty of differences between all of them, so I'll just summarize them as best I can for you. So starting off with the A90J compared with the A80J, it has to be said the 55-inch A90J is £1,000 more expensive than the 55-inch A80J, coming in at £2,699. For that extra money, there are a few differences. So first of all, you'll notice the A90J is slightly slimmer and it doesn't have quite as large a protrusion at the back. Now, this would be useful if you're wall mounting or you simply want to keep aesthetics as much as possible in your room. You do also get Sony's premium backlit remote on the A90J, which you don't get on the A80J. In terms of picture differences, you do get OLED XR Contrast Pro in the A90J, which just uses an extra fine-tuned OLED panel with slightly better brightness and color richness. There is also an 83-inch size available on the A90J if 77-inch just won't cut it, or you're wanting to install more of a cinema quality TV. Now, I have seen you in the comments and I know you guys are finding it hard to pick between these TVs, so to be honest, you'll be happy with either of these TVs. If you've got the budget for the A90J, I'll be honest and say it is worth it. However, the A80J at the lower price point is still very impressive and perfect for those looking for OLED, but not too fussed about having the best of the best. If I was buying fresh this year, I would go for the A80J, as my budget probably wouldn't quite stretch the A90J. If, however, I was in a position to stretch the A90J, I can certainly see the temptation. Now, on the other side of the scale, if you're looking for specifically an OLED smaller than 55-inch, you'll need to look towards the Sony A9 model, which was brought forward from 2020, and this is available in an exclusive 48-inch size. From the A80J, you could also drop down to the flagship full-array LED TV, the X95J, starting at what we believe to be around the £1,600 mark for the smallest size, the 65-inch. Now, the main thing you lose by dropping down is the OLED capabilities, so you'll notice that the blacks aren't quite truly black, the contrast ratio isn't quite as good, and there will be less colour hues. Overall, for us, the picture doesn't pop off as much and you do lose a level of detail too. There is also a drop down in sound performance as you lose that acoustic surface audio technology where the screen becomes the speakers. However, you do get extra wide angle, which means that if your seating area is off axis by more than 30 degrees, you shouldn't lose the colours and contrast, and this will bring it sort of up to standard of where OLEDs might be. You also get extra anti-reflection, so I'm not sure why they keep putting X in front of everything, but this reduces unwanted glare from light sources. If you're looking at 55-inch or below, you'll need to come down again to the X90J, starting at £1,249 for the 50-inch and £1,399 for the 55-inch. Now, the X90J is a slight step down from the X95J in terms of sound and visuals, so you don't get extra wide angle and extra anti-reflection, and you lose the extra subwoofer and backlit remote in the X95J. Now, I also happen to know a lot of you have been asking for a comparison between the Sony A80J and LG C1 OLED, which is a very fair comparison. So on the LG, in terms of available sizes, you can go down to as small as 48-inch for £1,299, £1,999, all the way up to 77-inch for about £4,000. The Sony A80J starts at 55-inch for £1,899, which is £200 dearer than the equivalent 55-inch C1 at £1,699. Now I will put a table up now quickly comparing all the sizes and prices between the C1 and A80J, so feel free to pause here. When comparing two TVs, personal taste does have an influence, and I would encourage you to check out some websites who give you plenty of images side by side so you can see the difference for yourself. Before you think I'm biased towards Sony, we will be stocking LG and Samsung in the future to give customers the choice, but my personal preference at the moment would be the Sony, because for me, real life accuracy is the most important thing for me in a TV. And I just think the Sony looks just that slightly more realistic, which might be due to that cognitive processor, I don't know, but there's not much in it, and I still think the LG C1 is an exceptional TV. What I would say from our experience is that the user interface on the LG immediately sticks out as being slightly more intuitive and simple to use, even more so than Sony's Google TV. I was finding myself being able to find services and content just that little bit quicker. We would say the LG would be a smarter choice for avid gamers too, as you actually get two more HDMI 2.1 ports, so perhaps if you have both a PS5 and an Xbox Series X, you won't need to switch the cables. They are also partnered with Nvidia and AMD, and the LG OLED TVs are the only G-Sync and AMD FreeSync Premium certified TVs. Now we are hoping to do a more in-depth comparison between these two models further down the line, but hopefully that's given you a few points to start you off. So let's start to wrap this video up then, otherwise I will be here all day. So who is the A80J right for? Simply put, if you're looking for the most up-to-date OLED technology, but you're not looking to spend top whack, the A80J offers an exceptional performance per pound, and I reckon that this will easily be Sony's most popular OLED this year. For me, if you've been on the fence about OLED, this current 2021 generation of OLEDs now is a great time to buy. I particularly think if you're coming from owning a 2-year-old TV plus, I think you'll be impressed just how much picture quality, motion clarity, and even sound quality has moved forward on 2021 TVs in general. I would say you get the most out of this TV for movies, sports, and TV shows, and once the VRR software update is here, also gaming, making this one of the strongest contenders on the market for an entry-level OLED this year. Ultimately, the question of whether it's worth it is one we can't answer for you. It will come down to your budget and how much you're looking to spend on a TV. Now, I can see a lot of people ruling this out as just too much money, but I can also see a market for those of you with a bigger budget who want to experience all the OLED offers. And I do think if that's you, you're going to be very impressed with this TV, and it does offer a great performance per pound in my opinion. So if you've reached this far in the video, thank you so much for watching until the end. I hope you did find it useful. If you did, it would be great if you could take just a second to drop me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel if you'd like to stay up to date in the world of audio visual. We do upload at least once a week, including a monthly news video about everything new in the audiovisual industry. All for free, remember. I will put a link to the A80J in the description below so you can check it out if this video has helped make your mind up. Thanks again, and see you on the next video.